Good morning, everyone. I am back in the garage on day 2. So last we left off, I went ahead. I got the rest of the thermostat out. Remember, we took this out, and as you can see, it's just, this thing's toasted. No fins on it left. I'm upgrading to a metal water pump here with metal fins. New thermostat, new gasket. The alternator this is the old alternator. The new one should be in today. And these are the new pulleys and tensioner. I'm gonna give the car one more wipe down, kind of clean. I already scraped off with a metal scraper, or the plastic scraper, excuse me, all the gunk and stuff that was left on the gaskets. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it down one more time, and I'm gonna start installing the thermostat first and then the water pump. Water pump is in. It's super easy, except for this bolt down here. So it gets blocked by this frame. There's like a frame over here that blocks you. So if you put a wobble on it or an elbow, it's not hard at all. Another thing too, with trying to get to hard to get bolts, what I use, or not hard to get bolts, I guess you would say, like bolts that are difficult to hold in the socket, is use some kind of grease. So like I'll use dielectric grease or any kind of non-corrosive, which most are, and you put it on the bolt head itself and you put it in the socket, and it holds it really well. Is done. I'm now going to do the pulleys, and then alternator came in today, excuse me, so that will go in as well. And I think I'm just going to clean this, vacuum this out real quick too. Tensioner and pulley in. Now I have to do the pulley with the alternator. I ended up just buying a used alternator just because I'm trying to make this as cheap as possible for you guys to see how cheap you can get a flip done. That's the new pulley. This is the new tensioner here. The other pulley, that rod member slides right through here to the back of there. So what I usually do is either grease it or use a little bit WD-40 or PB Blast to make it slide nicely in there and hold in place better. All that should be left is I'm replacing one coolant pipe, that cross coolant pipe, and putting the belt on. After that, I'm gonna fill it with coolant and see if it runs. We'll see. I have high expectations for this car because I really want it to sell. So, we'll see. Alternator is in, mounted, new pulley here. So both new pulleys, tensioner, and water pump down here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the belt on. Okay, water pump is, excuse me, belt. Dry belt is in. It was pretty difficult, so I ended up putting it onto the tensioner and trying to loosen tension from the tensioner and put it around this, as this is easier access to get to, that top pulley. Everything is on besides the coolant line. I'm waiting on that. While I'm waiting on that, I do have to drop, unfortunately, I tried fitting this lower rod in, and doesn't quite fit, and it's a really tight fit on the upper steering rod. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is drop the front subframe slightly and see if I can't get enough room in there. Other than that, I'm just waiting on one more coolant line, get that done, and some coolant. I think we're almost ready to start it up and see if it actually runs, like runs. We know it starts up, so, right. All right, so this part, I normally save 2 bolts. I start with the farthest, and you saw how it started dropping. So now I'm gonna do this side, always staying out of the car, away from the car, especially when you're doing the last bolt. All right, front subframe out. It's really not that difficult. For most subframes, it's not super difficult, and they're all held on by usually the roll bars and all your linkages to your wheels. So it allows it to where you can't, unless you start messing with all the suspension stuff, but these are all set places. So I know when I put that subframe back up, my alignment is gonna be exactly where it was before. But as soon as you start touching tie rods and lower control arms, that's where you get an issue. So you find the main bolts that are going straight to the frame of it. So this one had 6. I took 4 out, left 2 in, get out from under the car, start with 1, and then do the last one nice and slow and easy. And you should be able to wiggle the subframe around however you need it. This mating with this side is actually still difficult. Like, it's a very tight fit, so I'm gonna actually use like a gel lubricant here and place that in. All right, I'm gonna set you guys up below again. I'm gonna try and see if I can fit. I might have to jack up the car a little bit higher now that that subframe's dropped. We'll see. I hope not. All right. Well, I got a little too excited. I forgot to grab the camera when I went to start it, but she's running. So I'm gonna let it warm up to operating temperature and see how it does. The only issue so far is it's kind of not holding an idle RPM. It's just doing that. Everything's good. That's old coolant, that's not new coolant. And it's working perfect. No leaks. It had a little smoke right at startup, but that's pretty normal for a car that's been sitting for years. So the next thing, I'm gonna let it get to operating temperature, make sure that's good. If that's good, I'm gonna go ahead and throw that steering wheel on and get that lined up and probably start buttoning it back together and maybe work on the body work sometime this weekend. But that's it. So thank you for watching this episode. I know it's been kind of like a 3-day part. Just either I was waiting on parts or something happened or I had an appointment. That's pretty much it. I'm excited. So far it's running. Really excited to see. Looks like the market value is somewhere between $5,000 to $7,500. Picked up for $1,500. I want to say I'm about somewhere in the ballpark of at least $1,000 in parts, and I still need to get a soft top. So that's still a good profit margin, but we'll see because stuff just breaks randomly. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.